Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the coronavirus hype. And yes, I still think this is hype. It is being overhyped. I've had some people tell me that, well, it's not being overhyped because the media isn't talking about it. They're telling people that they need to settle down, go on with life as usual. We should be running around like chickens with our heads cut off. Well, you have the media now hyping it worse than the alternative media was. So I got a little bit of info here. But first I want everyone to look at this from a God's eye view. When did the hype start in the United States over coronavirus? It was within 48 to 72 hours of the rally in Richmond in January. I and others said the rally in Richmond was a major victory for the militia and for the Patriots, because we came together peacefully. We showed up, locked and loaded, ready for bear, ready for war. People were interviewed there, and they said that they were willing to die that day if need be, if someone was going to get something started. The enemy backed down because they were vastly outnumbered. There was at least 100,000 people there. Not no 20,000 like the state police says. Within a couple days of that, we all of a sudden had this boom. Coronavirus is the new Spanish flu epidemic. It's going to wipe out civilization. It's going to decimate mankind. Literally before the end of that week. And one of the first people that was pushing it was Alex Jones and InfoWars. I've said this before. And then after he started pushing it, then you had others start doing videos pushing it also. You had Mike Adams literally come to a screeching halt on the stuff he was talking about martial law, them coming for the guns, and all of a sudden it became, oh my God, coronavirus. You had Dabu7 coming out, start doing videos talking about coronavirus is the next epidemic that's going to wipe out mankind. And it started in the alternative media. I think when you back up you look at this from a God's eye view, you look at this from above, you have to ask yourself, what is the real agenda? Why did this appear on the scene when it did, in the sources that it did? Think of this from the enemy's perspective for a second here. They know we do not trust the lamestream media, the dinosaur media. Your MSNBCs, your CNNs, ABCs, NBCs, Fox, none of them. We don't trust a single damn word out of any of those. So how could they push something then that would get our attention and we would automatically believe it? Well, it would have to come through alternative media sources like InfoWars and others. So we all of a sudden had Corona appear out of nowhere. And we were getting told that this was the worst plague that's ever going to hit the planet. It's worse than the Black Death during the Middle Ages. Now, why would they push it? Why do they want us concentrating on coronavirus? What happened on January 20th in Richmond? You had hundreds, over 100,000, so tens of thousands of patriots come together from across the country. Well, that doesn't work for them, does it? So they got to keep us from gathering in large numbers again. Well, most of the patriot community are prepper-minded or survivalist-minded. So what's the best way to keep us at home, locked away, keep us from showing up at rallies, keep us from showing up at the doorstep of our legislators in their offices in the state capitals? as they try pushing through gun control, which they're still doing across this country. They're still doing it. They're still trying to ram it through. It's just alternative media is completely focused on Corona now. They've completely dropped the fact that they're still pushing to try to take our firearms away from us. They tell us that there's a pandemic and it's going to wipe everything out. So then what's going to be the prepper response to that? You don't go out in public. You don't go to areas where you're going to have large numbers of people at one time. And which means our only way to stand up against the gun control is, well, we'll make a phone call, we'll send a fax, send an email or whatever. It doesn't have the same impact that having dozens of voters showing up at that representative or that senator's office out in his waiting area wanting to talk to him or her and tell them, we do not want gun control, and if you push it, if you support it, we're voting your asses out in November. Where a phone call and email can be, just, okay, yeah, they don't like it, whatever, and you just brush it off. So it's less impact. Now, at the same time that this is going on, we're being told with the alternative media that the only response there should be to this is martial law. There should be crackdowns. There should be travel restrictions, not just from overseas into the U.S., but inside the U.S. Did people forget that before January 20th, we were saying if they did something like that, that we would go to war immediately? We would consider that a declaration of war against the citizens of the United States? Mike Adams was one of those that was talking about they had already contracted people to put in roadblocks across Virginia to take firearms away from people leaving the Richmond rally, which I never heard of those roadblocks going in. So either it was a BS story or they backed down. I'm thinking more towards the backing down thing. So right now, you got alternative media is now pushing the exact same thing that a few months ago, 2 months ago, we were saying if it was done, we would go to war immediately. So think about this. We are being manipulated in to get the exact response that they wanted for the Richmond rally and get us to welcome it and get us to call for it. Now, for those of you who are saying, well, this isn't happening, they're not doing that, I listened to some of InfoWars on Friday. You had Mike Adams and Alex Jones on there, and you can go back, listen to the show. During the segment where Mike Adams is there, the two of them are saying, they're begging Trump to declare martial law in the United States, to put up roadblocks across the roads and stop people from traveling across this country, to stop coronavirus. Why the hell should we believe that any roadblock that gets put in is only going to stop people for coronavirus? China has used their little quarantine that they put in place for coronavirus to go after political dissidents, to round up people that they wouldn't have been able to stop before, because before they would have slipped past the police and disappeared. Well, now everyone's quarantined to their building, to their home or whatever, so the cops can more easily surround it, go in there and drag the person out and their family and take them off to quote-unquote re-education camps. Or as they were known in Nazi Germany, concentration camps. Or as they were known in Soviet Russia, death camps or gulags. What the hell makes you think that the deep state that left us here in the United States wouldn't exploit martial law and roadblocks and all that stuff to do the same fucking thing? Do people forget that back in December, you had Project Veritas leaking videos of Bernie supporters, saying they wanted to round people up and put them in re-education camps or put them up against a wall? Have people forgotten Hillary Clinton in 2016 saying that people that don't have the correct political beliefs should be put in fun camps where they would be taught the correct way to think? Do people believe that line of ideology has disappeared from our government? And I'm sure there's people right now screaming that, well, Trump won't allow this to happen. He's one of us. No, he's not. He was born with a gold spoon up his ass. His daddy was no poor guy. He started out at a level far beyond most of us will ever attain, and he went beyond that. I watched Steven Crowder's show this week. I watched it over on BitChute. And he talked to Alex Jones there, and they discussed Trump. And Steven Crowder brought up that he's concerned with Trump because if you remember, before the 2016 election, Trump was a Democrat. He was a friend of the Clintons. He's not a patriot. And how do we know that after he wins by a landslide in this November election, which, looking at the people that are potentially going to be running against him, even if they bring in Hillary as their anointed candidate, which I still believe it's going to be her, who the hell thinks that they have a snowball's chance in hell of standing up against Trump? And when Trump wins his landslide victory, which will go into history books, more lopsided than Reagan's in 84, where I think Reagan had got 48 states. The only ones he didn't were like California and I think Minnesota. And the only reason Minnesota voted against Reagan was because the person running against Reagan was from Minnesota. What the fuck was his name? Mondale, I think it was. Kind of hard to remember. Yeah, it's a long time ago. But it's going to be like that, if not bigger. Trump's going to win in November. And how do we know for certain he isn't going to go back to his old Democrat Party and elitist ways? Trump, regardless of what he says, is no friend of the Second Amendment. Do we forget about his little comments he made with Dianne Feinstein jumping up and down, giddy as a frickin' schoolgirl seeing her first dick in her life? Well, we'll just take the guns now and we'll worry about due process later. People will still talk about that was 4D chess. No, I think that was him actually seeping through. And I've talked to a few people in the militia movement, not as many because I've been busy as hell lately. They think that we're getting set up for confiscations, that we're being distracted by the coronavirus stuff while things are being set up by the ATF under Trump's orders to start taking away the scary weapons. We'll still get allowed to keep our, our double-barrel shotguns, Mr. Fudd, and our bolt actions and our revolvers, but all the semi-autos will have to go. Unless you're an elitist rich person who has bodyguards who are armed with full autos and all that. Like Trump. So, things to consider, things to think about from that God's eye view. Right now I'm going to drop down to earth level because we're almost 15 minutes into the video here. I'm showing you a piece of my gear on the table, a Katadyn pocket filter. They are expensive as hell. When I bought that one, it was over $400 and I got it probably almost 10 years ago, if not even before that. And that pocket filter is supposed to have a capacity of up to 13,000 gallons. It is hard plastic here and metal upper and lower to include the shaft on the pump. So if the pumping gets harder because, you know, my pre-filter and the filter element inside start getting clogged, I don't have to worry about snapping a piece of plastic on it. It was a long-term investment, and it's gone from being inside my rucksack for deployment overseas to being inside my rucksack for deployment in the United States for a potential civil war. If you got the money because of tax refunds right now, look into something like that. They're not cheap, but they're going to last a really long time. They do come with a little toolkit to include scouring pads for cleaning the filter, a little gauge here to determine when the filter is too small and should be replaced, silicone lubricant to go on the shaft of the pump to make it easier for pumping and that stuff, less binding. The hoses on them are different sized. A smaller hose for the dirty water going in, larger hose for the outlet going out so you can't accidentally mix them. Now back into Corona stuff, and then I'm going to bring in some things from my civilian experience. My civilian employment is logistics. I've said this a few times. Now, coronavirus so far, as of today, U.S. deaths stands at 21 when I just started this video. 18 of those are in Washington State, with at least 14 of those from the same nursing home in Seattle. 2 deaths in Florida, 1 death in California, and when the one in California died, there was some talk that this person had contact with that nursing home up in Seattle. So that's most likely where they got it. There was no additional details beyond that, and they clamped down on the info and made it disappear. There was no further investigation. No one didn't wanted to talk about it. As of today, there's at least 500 cases. Cases have been confirmed in 33 states and the District of Columbia. Now, recommendations for preventing coronavirus. If you feel sick, stay at home so you don't spread it to others. Wash your damn hands. You go to a store or something like that, wipe down the handles on the cart. Usually there's some type of antibiotic wipes nearby. Use it. If you want to, use surgical gloves. That's something Kaz and a few others, Kaz from Fourth Dimension. If you're not a subscriber to his channel, go over and subscribe. I recommend it. He's doing that. He's going through sanitizing carts and all that stuff. He's avoiding large groups when he goes into stores. He's using rubber gloves and that stuff as he moves through the stores. If he sees sick people, I'm sure he has a face mask in his pocket that he can pull out and toss on his face pretty damn quick. So, and as you know, the face mask you want is an N95 mask. Yes, I know these are in short supply now, but guess what? You don't need 500 of these damn things. As long as it does not get wet or extremely dirty, you can reuse this. You don't have to change it out all the time. You can also get the ones that are in painting stores for people that do a lot of spray painting or use chemicals when they're stripping paints and that inside a home or on vehicles. Those work too. They're N95. Now, info I got from Survival Blog of the people that do get sick with coronavirus. 85 to 90% of them will have minor symptoms. 10 to 15% of the people that get it will have worse symptoms, which will primarily be respiratory, with the potential of leading to viral pneumonia, and that'll be what will kill you. Now, who needs to be worried about corona cases or getting coronavirus or COVID-19? Unless you're a senior citizen, you don't really have to worry about it. Or if you're a person like me with a seriously weakened immune system, that's because of cancer. I have to be concerned about it. You probably do not. Now, the death rate from the people that get the cases, not from the general population, so of the people that get coronavirus, the death rate is all over the place. I've seen numbers of like 1.5 to 4%. And like I said, the ones that have to worry the most are elderly. When you look at the CDC's and Johns Hopkins numbers, it's really messed up. They say that 80% of the cases are for people between the age of 30 to over 70. For below that, you're looking at single digits or less. Now, that's a pretty big age range for their 80%. I got a feeling if they broke it down even more, like your 30s to 40s, 40s to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70, and so forth, you're going to find that the highest percentage of those cases are going to be ones that are in their 50s, 60s, and older. That's where the majority of them are going to be. Your 30s to 50, probably not as much. You're probably looking, maybe 10%. Is my guess. The last I had heard on the deaths in the United States from coronavirus, almost every one of them is an older person. They're not talking about that in the news. These are senior citizens who are typically in nursing homes. So now, a little comparison info here, which is from the CDC. Now, since January, when people started freaking out about coronavirus, we've had 21 deaths, okay? Well, since September of last year, there have been over 18,000 deaths from the flu in the United States. But we're supposed to be worried about 21 people dying from coronavirus. Now, there are right now over 500 confirmed cases of coronavirus since January in the United States. In the United States alone, since September, there has been over 32 million cases of the flu. And we all should know the flu hits everyone. Young and old, good immune system, bad immune system. The coronavirus primarily attacks people that are compromised. Listening to some of the videos put out by John, the Prepared Mind channel. I watch his stuff over at BitChute also. He's getting information that most of the deaths in China that they're aware of or that he's hearing from China are elderly people, and especially people that have respiratory problems, like smokers. So, which makes sense. If you have a strong immune system, you're younger, you really don't have to worry about corona. At least not yet. Who knows in the future? But right now, no. It's being overhyped. It's being overhyped to cause a massive fear reaction in us. Now, why is it being overhyped? I think a lot of it is to get us to welcome martial law to get us to self-quarantine, to no longer gather in groups. I really came to that conclusion on Friday listening to InfoWars begging Trump to declare martial law right now. Mike Adams is saying that he expects to see martial law declared in the United States within 30 days. Because within 30 days is when we're going to see the cases across the United States explode, showing us that this is the real epidemic that's going to wipe us out. Mike Adams right now is predicting that we're going to have between 2.1 and 2.4 million dead by January 4th. Well, if he expects to hit those numbers, I expect to see a huge growth curve in deaths over the next couple weeks here. Because these onesies and twosies a week does not equal 2 million dead by July. I understand that it will go up as the number of cases go up. But that's not a big issue at the moment in my consideration. Should people be concerned or prepare for corona? I'd say make it a consideration, but I don't think you should completely flip out on it. If you're short on something, I'd say go to a store and get it. Get a few extra, bottles or containers of cold meds, flu meds. If you can find it, get a hold of a couple extra jugs of bleach, and you want the bleach that does not have fragrance and that stuff added. You want regular bleach. I can tell you from going to the store over the past couple days here, bleach is getting a little bit harder to find because people are panic buying right now. They're getting like 10 bottles in a shot. I cannot find a frickin' 1 gallon bottle of bleach anywhere. And even the half-gallon bottles are getting hard to find. Have extra toilet paper on hand, but there's no reason to go out and buy 10 extra packs. Yes, there's pictures of people doing that in stores too. Have extra food on hand. That's going to be a big thing. So I've mentioned that before. Even in January, I mentioned people get extra food, stock up on extra cold meds and flu meds. And this was before the corona crap came out. No, I was not aware of anything with corona or any viral anything that was going to be pushed. It's just if a conflict does break out, your diet's going to not be as good. You're going to be more susceptible to disease and that stuff, and that's where having extra cold meds, extra flu meds comes in handy. 28 minutes. Now, on Thursday, I did a trip to Sam's Club. When I went there and looked around, they still had plenty of toilet paper, they still had plenty of water and all that. I did notice that they were really low on dry beans, bags of dry beans, bags of rice, and flour. Those three things they were really down on, where before they normally have a few pallets in the slots of their racking. I went to Walmart on Friday. When I was walking through there, freeze-dried pouches were completely sold out. 2-pound bags of rice were completely sold out. All the cheap dried beans were sold out. They still have some, but it's the more expensive stuff, the higher end stuff. Your pinto beans and that stuff are sold out. Toilet paper has been thoroughly ransacked. There was still a few packs left, and there were ones that I'm guessing people fought over and ripped open. Bleach was pretty much sold out. The cases or containers of preserved long-term storage foods from Augustin Farms. Those, I found one on the shelf where normally they have close to a dozen. So, cases of water and that, they still had it. They still had sodas, they still had juices. So, there is a lot of panic buying going on. I work in logistics, as I've said before. The volume I've seen over this last week was way beyond what it should be this year at this time. Normally we're in a little lull here in springtime till we get up near the end of school and that stuff, and then the volume picks up over summer as people are buying and ordering more stuff. Well, right now our numbers that we seen at my job this week were a lot higher than they should be. I'm seeing a considerable amount of food going out. A big thing I'm seeing a large volume on moving is seafood. Now, part of this is because it's Lent. People buy more seafood during Lent. But even the numbers I'm seeing compared to past years, it's more than normal. For those of you that are not aware, the vast majority of the seafood in the United States, and it doesn't matter if it's your Gordon's, your Walmart, who the hell else has it? All your seafood companies, it doesn't matter if they sell shrimp, if they sell lobster, crab, fish fillets, chicken nuggets, almost all of that stuff comes from Southeast Asia. So the volume on the supply of that's going to be drying up here soon. And I think the different stores are ordering extra just to have it on hand, is my guess. And that's why we're seeing a lot more seafood moving around. But food in general, just the amounts I'm seeing going out on trucks is a lot more than normal. We're a lot more than it should be. So there is panic buying going on, and I'm seeing it on my end, you know, where it's moving around from truck to truck, facility to facility, and all that. So, and I will say this as a backup on the whole if you're sick, stay home thing. We had one jackass at my facility this week. He came in very visibly sick. He should have stayed home, but the fucker didn't. He came into work, and he got me sick and a bunch of other people on my crew. I talked to one of my coworkers yesterday, and they told me that after I left work on Friday because I felt like garbage and I was almost puking when I went out the door, at least 2 others left right away within a couple hours, and a lot of other people on my crew were starting to feel really bad. And it's all because of one person who was sick coming into work, who should not have. That person spread it to everyone else on our crew, and from what I heard, our pacing and that stuff went down in the toilet because so many people were sick. They weren't feeling good. You know, they weren't getting trucks loaded as quick. They weren't getting pallets set up as quick. And, you know, they ended up working a lot later than they were supposed to because of that. So, if you're sick, stay home. So, 34 minutes. Prepare for the possibility. I think this is going to be a big thing here that we are going to see before the end of spring. I do believe that we will see the corona situation exploited for martial law in the United States. They will use it as an excuse for clamping down on the food supply. So get a hold of, you know, packages of food. I know you're not likely to find freeze-dried foods right now, Well, get a hold of your cans of soup, cans of pasta. When I was at Walmart on Friday, I seen that they were selling cans of Chef Boyardee for 80 some cents a can, which is a really good price. Get a couple cases. Get 4 cases. You know, when I was there, there was pallets of them on the floor with the sale sign above it. So I got myself a few cases of Chef Boyardee to put in my emergency pantry. I recommend it. I've heard there's some pretty good sales on some other canned goods that you should be exploiting right now too. For those of you that aren't aware, canned goods in the United States typically are from the United States. They don't come over from China. So there should not be a major disruption on that stuff. There might be because of packaging of the cans themselves or the paper that the labels are printed on and that stuff. But for actual food going into the cans to go to the store, most of that's produced in the US anyway, or at least in North America. So there was 1 or 2 other things I was going to mention, and I can't remember it right now because I didn't write them all down. But be prepared for the possibility of martial law. Fully expect that they're going to say it's because of the coronavirus, but they're going to exploit it to do other things. I would fully expect to see red flag raids being launched during a quarantine. And they'll do it during that time to keep militia and patriots from responding to back the person up who's getting raided, or to potentially free the person who's been arrested and is being transported back to whatever jail facility. So expect to see that. Expect to see fuel shortages. I could see them try to implement that also, blame the coronavirus situation on there not being enough gas inside the gas stations and see the price of the fuel going up. I expect that to happen. So there was one major thing I was going to mention. But basically, be prepared for pretty much anything for the next couple months here. Oh, John over at the Prepared Mind channel is pointing out that coronavirus is being used as a convenient cover for deflating the economy. He's been pointing out that the economy in China has been collapsing for at least a year. Last year it was every month there was another major Chinese bank was going under because of their collapsing economy. Well, now they can just shift all of it from poor economic planning by the communists to it's all because of coronavirus. Expect to see that here in the United States too. We've already had major drops in the stock market that they're blaming on coronavirus. Expect to see more of that. You know, they're going to start deflating the bubbles a little bit so that they maintain control, and they're all going to say it's because of coronavirus. So they're going to exploit the hell out of this thing to get what they want. They'll get their gun control. They'll get their martial law, their roadblocks, their confiscations and that, and they'll all blame it on coronavirus. They'll have, or pretty much have, control of the media now. You have alternative media, which sounds almost exactly like mainstream media now, which should disgust the hell out of everyone. So, oh, last note here right before I sign out. The Sun Tzu videos, I do want to do that here this week. I'm sorry I didn't get to it this week. It was because, like I said, at work we got swamped. We seen our numbers went through the roof, and then I got sick, so I didn't get my research done like I wanted to. The Pro Mask video, I'm hoping to be able to do that tomorrow after I see the doctor. I have part of my regular cancer monitoring stuff going on. Tomorrow we're going to be going over some of the tests that have been done over the last month and compare it to previous tests, previous years and stuff like that, and see where I'm sitting on different stuff. So after I get back from that appointment, I'm going to attempt to do the preventative maintenance checks and services on the M40 series protective mask video. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essayons, let us try.